And then I will hop over to sharing my screen. And we'll get started with some introductions from folks that are joining us here from the Circuit Trails Coalition. So I'll kick us off. Thanks everybody for joining us tonight. I know it's super beautiful outside, so we appreciate you coming onto your computer to learn about the status of the Tookany Creek Trail in Cheltenham and how to get involved. My name is Patrick Monahan. I'm the regional organizer with the Bicycle Coalition, and I work on circuit projects in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And I will pass it over to Xenia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Xenia, or Z. I work for the Pennsylvania Environmental Council. Do a lot of work on the circuit trails here in Philly. I also do some projects across the state, and the Tookany Creek Trail was actually my first major project at PEC that I came on and worked with Julie and Bob Thomas, who did the excellent feasibility study. And I do want to actually have Julie and John introduce themselves as well. But before that, I just wanted to acknowledge Commissioner Dan Norris, who's joined us, and thank you for being here. Definitely appreciate your support and your interest, at least. And if you want to say a few words about this or anything else, please feel free to jump in.
I appreciate the acknowledgement, but no, this is I'm just attending, so I'm a supportive resident and commissioner, but finances always get in the way of these issues. So I'm here to hear what you have to say and learn. Thank you. We appreciate all you do.
Thanks, Dan. And there was just one other. Patrick Starr, who's my boss, had mentioned that he recognized the name David Cohen from the registrant list, and wanted to recognize you as well, David, as someone who was very excited about getting this project started in the first place. So if you want to say a few words as well, please feel free to jump in.
Sure. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm a school board member in Cheltenham. I'm very active on the trails locally. Just here as a citizen, and thank you for your work on this project, and look forward to the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks. Julie, do you want to say a quick introduction?
Sure. Hi, everybody.
Julie, we're having a little trouble hearing you.
I'm sorry. Is that a little better?
Still a little hard to hear.
Sit back. Does that help?
That's a little better.
Still, yeah, it's tough, but we can kind of hear you.
Okay, that's terrible. All right, so that's better. Okay, so I'm not going to move, which is fine. The mission of TCF is to improve our 30 square mile watershed. We do that through education, stewardship, restoration, and we connect people to their creeks. And trails are a really important way to be able to do that. So the Tookany Creek Park in Philadelphia, excuse me, has a 3.2 mile trail through it. Half of it is a circuit trail. It connects them to Roosevelt Boulevard, and we see how effective that is in getting people next to a creek, being able to connect with them about nature. So we care about our whole watershed, and we like to see, very helpful and willing to be able to connect to water and across municipal lines and across the watershed. With tax and the township to get the feasibility. Very community trails, even though we're not trails, a lot of work on the trail. Spread that information and connection with a lot of other folks.
Thanks, Julie. And just real quick before we dive into the presentation here, John, if you want to introduce yourself and say anything about the project, feel free.
Sure. Thanks, Z. Thanks, everybody, for hosting this. I'm John. I live in Wyncote. about a block from the Jenkintown Windcote station. And this coalition here is awesome because hopefully someday I'll be able to go to the bottom of my street and go east on the Tookany Creek Trail into Tookany Creek Park on a trail and head in the other direction through Glenside and Arcadia and connect into the Gresham Trail. So I'm an ex-EAC member. Just great to see the community come together, supported by all these groups here with us today. So thank you very much.
Awesome. All right, thanks everybody. With that, I think we can dive into our presentation. And as I had mentioned, we'll follow up with a Q&A towards the end for open discussion. So as we, let me click here. That should work, cool. Yeah, so before we dive into the project itself, I thought they'd give a little bit of context on the Circuit Trails Coalition. So we're here representing the Circuit Trails Coalition. It's a collaborative effort of more than 60 organizations that work with state and local agencies, as well as our NPO DVRPC. For our agenda, we'll go over the status of the Circuit Trails throughout the region. We'll zoom into the county level, and then we'll zoom into the Tookany Creek Trail in Cheltenham. We'll go over some opportunities and challenges to get the feasibility study moving. And then we'll go over a few ways you can get involved, and then the Q&A following that. So with the regional update, this is a pretty up-to-date version of the trail status throughout the region. It covers 9 counties, 5 in Pennsylvania, 4 in New Jersey. And the status you're seeing here goes from existing down to planned. The trails that are in progress are trails that are highlighted in orange, and they're either being currently designed or built. The trails in pipeline typically involve DVRPC, local governments, and nonprofit organizations who are actively working to move these trails forward by conducting studies, acquiring right-of-way, engaging local communities, and laying the groundwork for obtaining funding for future design and construction. And then the planned in the blue, these are trails that are documented in local county or regional plans. They represent opportunities for regional scale and multi-use trails. Studies or plans may have been prepared for these trails, but a sponsor is not actively working to move them forward. So with that, I will go into what all those colors calculate to. So we have 380 miles that are existing. We have 73 that are in progress, 115 in the pipeline, and 266 miles in the planning stage. And we also have a goal of reaching 500 miles by 2025. So that 380 is kind of narrowing in on that 500 miles by 2025. So chipping away at the vision of 800 plus miles throughout the region. Yeah, and now to zoom in a little bit further into Montgomery County. I just want to highlight a few priority trail projects throughout the county. There's the Cross County Trail, which is that squiggly line here, in the purple and orange statuses, connecting us to several critical trails, including the Tookany Creek Trail. It's moving forward right around here, the Germantown Crossing, but there's other segments that are moving forward thanks to the Montgomery County Planning Commission's work. We have the Kinwood Spur Trail down by Philadelphia, linking us to the Schuylkill River Trail and the Ivy Ridge Trail. Then we have the Liberty Bell Trail, which is in the blue, making connections from Lansdowne down to Norristown. And of course, the reason why we're all here is the Tookany Creek Trail right here. And then we're focusing here more on the purple side. Give you some context of what's existing, what's moving forward, what's in the planning stage. And with that, I will hand it over to Z to talk more about the Tookany Creek Trail and the feasibility study that came out in 2021.
Great, thanks, Patrick. Yeah, and Julie and John can feel free to jump in, wherever, if they notice anything that I've forgotten. The Tookany Creek Trail feasibility study was a really great process and actually included a large amount of public and community outreach, especially considering the time period when it happened. So you'll see it was recognized by Cheltenham Township in spring of 2021, but the majority of the planning process happened in 2020. So during the peak of COVID, and the project did start early enough for there to be one in-person public meeting / workshop at the very beginning of the process. But shortly after that, everything had to move online. So it was all virtual, even which I'm sure Commissioner Norris will remember, even the meeting where the study was recognized was a virtual meeting. So it was very interesting. But despite that, the survey that we put out, we received over 600 responses, over 95% of which were positive in support of the trail. So despite these sort of setbacks, and we realize that even some people on this call might have never heard of this study going on while it happened. That's just sort of how it goes oftentimes with planning processes. But there was quite a large turnout and also support from the Cheltenham community, which we were really grateful for. So the study itself looked into upgrades to the existing trail, which you see a picture of there on the cover of the report, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. As someone noted earlier on this call, it was when this trail was put in, it was made, expressly stated that it would just be a walking and hiking trail, that bikes would not be allowed on it. So part of the proposal of this feasibility study was to upgrade that to circuit trail standards, which basically means 10-foot wide paved or gravel fines, which this would basically meet. It would need to be widened a little bit, and of course multi-use. So it would have to be ADA accessible for walkers, bikers, runners, people in wheelchairs or other sort of mobility devices. So that would encompass the upgrades to the existing trail, plus the creation of roughly 2 new miles of trail, which would start at the end point of the Tookany Creek Trail at Cheltenham Avenue, connect into the existing trail, and then off the other side of the existing trail at New 2nd Street, it would take you through Gimble Field, parts of which are being worked on right now. I'm sure some of you know a pedestrian bridge has just opened, and work on the actual paved piece of the trail through Gimble Field is ongoing. And then from there through High School Park and into Elkins Park, and into the train station is basically where it would finish, and those businesses along there. So those new pieces are roughly 2 miles of new trail. And, what we've really been focusing on, and this actually came out of the meeting where the Cheltenham commissioners recognized the feasibility study, was focusing on the development of the trail from Harrison Ave, or basically the end of Gimble Field, to Elkins Park. That seemed to be one of the more popular trail segments, and it's actually a great trail segment. If you think about it, not only expands the existing trail and links directly into it, but it also gets you to public transportation in the form of the SEPTA Regional Rail Station and all those great businesses. I know on my visits to Cheltenham for various events, I've stopped by the Goat House Creamery or the coffee shop. Well, that is also the coffee shop, or across the street, there's the sort of mini Reading Terminal Market. I live in Philly, so that's what I think of it as, with the you can get sandwiches in there, and there's the brewery. So it's great, and that would be a great location to connect to. So really that's the point we're at now, is really trying to get the community back involved and regenerate the interest that we had during this planning study, and get people excited about moving this forward again. So I think you can probably hop forward, Patrick. I know you're going to take the next one. Oh, sorry. And this is the map. Yes. So before Patrick goes on with opportunities and challenges, this is a map of the Tookany Creek Trail that came out of the feasibility study, and it's broken up into phases. So the orange phase there, number 3, New 2nd Street to Harrison Ave, fully funded, construction underway. That's the piece I was talking about through Gimble Field. And then pieces 1 and 2 are the pieces that I was talking about, connecting into Elkins Park. Sections 4 and 5 are the existing Tookany Creek park and path. And then 6, 7, and 8 are the pieces that connect you into Philly. And if people are interested, you can definitely reach out to me after this meeting. I can drop my email in the chat, and I can share this map with you. I can also share more sort of detailed phasing plans that came out of the feasibility study as well, as any other information you might be interested in. So I think we can leave it there and pass it back to Patrick to go into some opportunities and challenges moving forward.
Great, thanks, Z. Yeah, so some challenges that have been identified following the feasibility study include, this is kind of an issue that comes with a lot of trails in a lot of different communities, just the lack of widespread knowledge of trails within someone's township, especially its benefits, the things that it connects to that Z had mentioned, including, SEPTA's regional rail, just various businesses, parks, waterways, other trails, connections to other counties. So that's something that we're always trying to do, is just raise awareness around these trails and what they connect people to, and the importance of building out those gaps and those connections between segments. And additionally, we've noticed that Friends of the Tookany Creek Trail could always use more members and support to get the word out. So we'll get into kind of how you can get involved there as we move forward. But the more people that are loving these trails, then the more they are prioritized and the more that they are built out. So two important things that need to happen for this work to accelerate. And then we have our opportunities. There's always an opportunity for building support with the Cheltenham commissioners. So we're thrilled to have one of the commissioners here with us today, expanding the existing trail into Cheltenham to include use by cyclists to make it multimodal is really critical, so that all modes of transportation are happening, and it's building an active transportation network, which is, that's like that's the way we need to think about transportation moving forward. Connecting to SEPTA's regional rail station and businesses in Elkins Park, the links to Philadelphia that Z had mentioned. Actually, Z mentioned a lot of this stuff, but yeah, these are all really important opportunities. The various trails that are outside of the county, inside the county, and then of course supporting and joining the Friends of the Tookany Creek Trail. So here are a few ways you can get involved, and we can link this out in the chat. Kind of something that came out of 2020 was the Circuit Citizens. This is something that you can sign up through online. And basically we engage with folks in counties, each individual county, unless it's like a statewide initiative. So you'll get action alerts for various opportunities for funding the trails or something like this, to join us to hear more about a certain trail, specifically maybe in your area or maybe a neighboring township. There's just a variety of ways we try to engage with our circuit citizens. It's a great way to stay in the know at a higher level for folks that are interested in advocacy and getting engaged. And then we also, the Get Involved page will also show you like our general newsletter, and just kind of ongoing action alerts, the latest information on trail status, and a lot of other good stuff like that. I popped my email here too. I can also include this in the follow-up, but if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. We can chat about any projects that are in your area, their status, how you can get involved, if you have any questions beyond what's kind of generally available for you at the Circuit website. And then I wanted to give a shout out to the Jenkintown Abington Neighbors Association, also known as JANA. We have one of the members here today, Ross Abel, who is also co-chair of the Bicycle Coalition's affiliate organization, Bike Montgomery County. JANA is an awesome group of really activated citizens of the two townships who are invested in pursuing green space, vibrant business districts, pedestrian and bike infrastructure, traffic calming in Jenkintown, Abington areas, just to increase the quality of life and mobility options for their residents. And I wanted to mention that, Cheltenham is listed here as well. And from what I've gathered, there are 2 residents from Cheltenham, but JANA is open to, having it as a support base to support the work that they're doing in their area and carrying it into Cheltenham. I think this is a good opportunity for folks that may be interested in becoming advocates for this kind of thing, but they don't really know how to navigate the space yet. Jenna is pretty great if you just join the email list. It's great to kind of see like what they're constantly working on. There's several issues to tackle this stuff and make it more accessible for all. And I figured, Ross, I know you're on the call. I don't know if you have anything you wanted to mention in addition to what I had said so far, but feel free to take a moment to share something if you'd like.
Hey Patrick, yeah, let me see if I can get, is my video working? Can't tell.
Yes, for a second, maybe. Yep.
Awesome. Well, I'll at least talk. Let's see. Yeah, so thanks, Patrick. We primarily have been advocating for things like protected bike lanes, pedestrian infrastructure. A lot of it's the same in Cheltenham. A lot of areas around, primarily Abington, there's a lot of neighborhoods without sidewalks. So just pedestrian issues are pretty critical, similarly to Cheltenham. But that and bike advocacy are two of the big things that we do, just in addition to traffic calming. And all of this connects together with active transportation and just making the streets safer. So yeah, by all means, if anyone's interested, please reach out.
Awesome. Thanks, Ross. Dropping the link to Jenkintown Abington's website if you're interested in getting involved in that side of things. And then this leads us to a few ways you can get involved in Cheltenham. As Z had mentioned earlier, you could reach out to him for any questions or resources that have been shared in this presentation. And of course, share your support. We encourage you to share your support with your local commissioners. Let them know that this is an important project that you want to see move forward. The trails are for everybody, but they're not just recreational use, they're active transportation. They're real modes of transportation to get us from work and play and all that good stuff. So that's really the most important piece here. In addition to also joining the Friends of the Tookany Creek Trail, which has the Facebook page there. So Z, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that point?
No, we just wanted to say, thanks to everyone. We'll get into some questions here. Definitely saw some come in the chat, and I'm sure people will have more questions they want to ask. But just wanted to thank everyone for coming out. As Patrick mentioned, on a beautiful Wednesday night, I think it shows that there is lots of interest for this trail, and definitely tell all your friends and family. And as Commissioner Norris mentioned up at the top, these things are always tough because townships have, or municipalities always have, many competing interests and priorities, and funding can be hard to come by. But I think keeping this alive and keeping the drumbeat going is the best thing that any of us can do to move this forward. So with that, I think we can open it up to questions. And before we take any from the people on the call, I just wanted to just ask a couple that had been raised in the chat. And I did answer a couple of these in the chat, but just in case people didn't see it, someone had asked, what is the difference between planned and pipeline when it comes to a circuit trail? And the main difference is planned means it's basically just shown on a map somewhere, or maybe included in a county trails plan years and years ago, but that's about it. It's just a line on a map. Whereas pipeline means planning work is actively being done on it, like a feasibility study. And then in progress means real work is being done to get it toward engineering or final engineering or design. So it's ready for construction, basically. And then obviously existing is completed trail. So currently the Tookany Creek Trail is shown on the map. The Gimbal field section is being shown as in progress because work is being done on it, but the rest of the trail is currently shown as pipeline. Someone also asked, when you say EP, do you mean the train station? And yes, by Elkins Park, we're referring to the train station and the businesses near the station. And then also a question was asked, can one currently ride on the existing segments of the Tookany Trail? So Julie, you can answer that, but I believe in Tookany Creek Park in Philly, yes, you can ride on the trails.
Oh, Julie, we can't hear you.
We aren't
Please
hearing
will
you.
not mute it.
Might be something with your speaker. Yeah. You can type it in the chat, Julie. Okay.
Oh, we heard you for once. Oh, you probably can't hear us now.
Set of earphones.
We can
Oh,
hear
no,
you now.
Hear you now, yeah. Wait, now
Oh.
we don't.
We could. Anyway, while Julie's getting set here, I also see.
How
Go
is
ahead.
that?
Yeah, we
That's
can.
better.
Yeah,
That's better.
yep, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm not gonna move. So what was the question? Oh, the Tookany Creek Trail. So the Tookany Creek Trail is actually, was actually first laid out, during the WPA, administration. It's pretty old. The park was laid out during that time. Anyway, the trail runs from Cheltenham Avenue, all the way under the boulevard. The city funded taking the trail under the boulevard, all the way to I and Ramona, which is in Juniata Park. The lower half of the trail from the boulevard down to Juniata Park is a full new paved, beautiful circuit trail. And it's for walkers and bikers. We have a number of walking and running groups. You see a lot of cyclists using it, and people teaching their kids how to ride bikes. The trail from the boulevard to Cheltenham Avenue is older, and we just finished a pretty comprehensive new master plan for Tookany Creek Park, which includes a lot of improvements for the park. The park has not been funded as well as other Philadelphia parks. So we're looking at really improving the trail from the boulevard up, and the park itself, the entire park, park itself, all the gateways, the entrances, and really bringing some more amenities to that trail. And we've had very positive conversations with elected officials about funding for those improvements. And the city of Philadelphia is very committed to trails. We've had conversations with Parks and Recreation and other folks about being able to really improve the trail from Cheltenham Avenue down to the boulevard.
And just to confirm, all the trails are you can ride your bike and walk on them.
You can ride your bike and walk on them. The other thing is that, at Ramona, in Juniata Park, that's where the Frankfurt Street Greenway will begin. And, it's going through Frankfurt, which is pretty dense. So a lot of that will be on streets within Frankfurt. But there's sections of the Frankfurt Street Greenway that have also been completed. So there's a section on Lewis Avenue, Wheat Chief Lane, and there's a really big section that was done as part of the 95 reconstruction from Aramingo Avenue to Forestdale. So sections are getting done, and there are people who come off the riding trail, they get off at Ramona, and they continue into the city, or they continue down to the Delaware Trail, because a lot of it is complete, and the city is working on additional connections.
And thank you, Julie. And I do see Jennifer Schwartz has had her hand up for a minute. Jennifer, please feel free to come off mute.
Hi. I know that the section at Gimble Field is not yet complete, but I was curious, so I explored it anyway. And I wonder what the plan is for the crossing of New 2nd Street. It's a pretty busy street. The cars come through there quite fast.
That's a great question. And I think Commissioner Norris may even be able to speak to this. I will say, I know that part of the delay in completing the Gimble Field section was approaching that crossing. And I think the township is looking at a rapid flashing beacon. But Dan, please feel free to speak to that.
Yeah, I was hoping that you would have more information than I do. I know the township staff has been working on this, and they're definitely talking about a strong a strong crossing there because we recognize the safety issue there. It's a very busy street, New Second. So certainly a flashing light and painted crosswalk on the street. I'm not sure if they're talking about a raised hump or not. So I don't know. I don't think it's been finalized what it's going to be. I think that the township is working with PennDOT.
Thanks. Thank you, Commissioner Norris. And John, I see you have your hand up.
Nope. Did you lower it for me? Oh, there we go. Awesome. Yeah, I just want to note a couple things and kind of follow on from Julie's notes. There are multiple people on this call that are Cheltenham Township residents, and I see them regularly getting in their car to drive to the Pennypack Trail and exercise or ride their bike. It's not, I can see the names, Ken and Lisa, David, Ross, from Jenkintown. And, we know trails take a long time to develop, but I think the folks in Cheltenham, we want our trails. We love our trails that we have within Cheltenham, but we want those trails to go somewhere. And, to just kind of talk clearly about it, the TTF has been on a mission to transform Tookany Creek Park. And I'm sure that mural behind Julie there is probably a mural somewhere in the park. But if you have not been down there, I highly recommend to go check it out. It's a beautiful park and it gets better every day with their hard work. So like I said at the beginning, I think we know this is a long process. I've been talking to people in the township for many years about trails, and we love our trails today. We love the Tookany Creek Trail. We love the segment that's getting built to connect into Gimble Field and bring us into the high school park area. But the vision really is to connect and to take us east and west. And that way we don't have to get in our car and we can go to the bottom of our street and run or ride our bike or take our kids to Cheltenham Little League or ride into Glenside or Elkins Park and have dinner. I believe Patrick, a former Bicycle Coalition member who was on the project a couple years back, said that there really isn't any circuit trail opportunity like the one in Cheltenham that can connect so many people, actual people, homes and businesses. We love the SRT and we love seeing what's happening up at the Liberty Bell Trail up in the suburbs, but you can ride for miles and not see a neighborhood, a house, a home, a restaurant. And the power of how trails can connect through Cheltenham really is it's unseen anywhere else. And that's, I think, what I hear folks talking about in Cheltenham. So.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so Ross, you have your hand up.
Hey, yeah. Love all of John's thoughts. And I guess one of my curiosities for the folks who are on the call is like, are there specific segments that make the most sense for, and I don't know if it's financially for Cheltenham residents to advocate for with their commissioners? And then separately, specifically on that segment that John mentioned, we did like a potential trail walk from Jenkintown to Elkins Park. What can folks advocate for in terms of getting a feasibility study for that specific segment? So those are just a couple of questions I have.
Thanks, Ross. So I'll share my screen again real quick. And this is sort of the strategy that we've been approaching since the feasibility study was recognized by the township, but was really these sections 1 and 2. especially with work going on in section 3. These were the pieces that connect you into the Elkins Park train station and the businesses over there. The benefit is, since section 1 goes through High School Park, this would be much cheaper, quite frankly, because there would be some stairs off of Mill Road you'd have to sort of get around, but there are already existing trails in High School Park. And I remember during the study, there was some concern over the type of trail and not wanting it to be paved, which, like I said, circuit trail standards, you can do gravel fines for permeability. So anyway, it would just be, that would be a huge cost savings, the fact that you'd just be sort of upgrading existing trails and then doing some trail crosswalks and multi-use trails. So these pieces would be, nothing is cheap, but it would be a lot more affordable than some of these other pieces, and it would connect you into the piece that's being built and then the existing pieces that you can currently walk along. So that would almost get you, this is about 2 miles, this is almost a mile here, so then you'd have almost 3 miles of trail open for not as much money as other pieces would cost. But I think the strategy of choosing a section, whether it's that or another piece, and really using that as your rallying cry is better than having it's great to have any support coming to local elected officials, but it's better to have your rallying cry centered around 1 or 2 segments as opposed to 3 people for this segment, 3 people for that segment. It's better to have 6 people for one segment in our experience. So.
And just for reference, the Tookany Creek Trail feasibility study that was dropped into the chat earlier, and like I said, I'll combine all the resources we've been sharing throughout the call, but there's an appendix towards the end that lists out all the potential funding opportunities that could build out this trail. And signing up to be a circuit citizen and whatnot would be a part of how folks can be activated when we kind of do the legwork on the back end to kind of like determine which funding source makes the most sense for the project, and then we would have you standing behind it, supporting our ask to move these funding opportunities into the trail development. So and like these levels of funding vary from federal down to state and local, so there's a variety of ways to fund the trails.
And one other thing I do want to bring up before we hop off here, see if there's any other questions, is Pennsylvania Environmental Council, as well as other members of the Circuit Trails Coalition, have a lot of experience writing grants on behalf of townships, and municipalities. An example is we've been working with Upper Darby Township in Delaware County, and we wrote a grant, PEC wrote a grant on behalf of Upper Darby Township, which was submitted in the name of Upper Darby Township for engineering and design of a section of the Nailers Run Trail there, which was awarded in the amount of $175,000. So just throwing that out there, that is a service we do provide to other municipalities, and that we would be, more than happy to provide, for Cheltenham if it helped take some of the pressure off of some of the staff. So I see Ross has his hand up again.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. I appreciate the explanations. Specifically, and I guess this also comes back to the prioritization on like what specifically you're advocating for, like between different segments. But would it be better to advocate, say like we also have interest in that segment that was planned for future from Elkins Park to Jenkintown? Would it be better to advocate currently just for getting one segment built, or also try to get the process started to get a feasibility study for that future section that currently hasn't been studied yet?
Yeah, I see what you're saying now. Yeah, well, I think they're obviously connected, but they're sort of 2 separate things. One is getting a feasibility study off the ground for a new project, and one is moving something that was already studied forward. So I think you could do both. I mean, they would really be two different initiatives, one, and they really work sort of differently, getting funding for a feasibility study versus funding for engineering and design. So I think you could definitely tackle both of those.
Awesome.
Can
Thanks.
can I add something to that?
Yeah, please.
I think that PEC's and the Bike Coalition and the circuit's expertise can be really helpful in terms of figuring out what to do next. I mean, you look at the study, there are dollar amounts attached to each segment, but there are also a bunch of different funding sources. And I know this works, for trails and for stormwater projects and everything else, where some of the fund, you have some of them have one match, some of them have another match, some of them have a little different goals and priorities. And sometimes, it helps to have a conversation and really sort of come up with what the opportunities that are coming up and what may make sense to do first and what may make sense to do a little bit later, depending on cost and time grants that are available. And I think tech, they're really good at figuring out how to get which grant for what. Makes a big difference.
Thanks, Julie. We appreciate that. So if anyone that has any other questions, feel free to jump in the chat now, and otherwise, be happy to let you go. Okay, I see Lisa and Ken have a question.
Hi, it's Lisa. Since John already called me out, and Julie said hello, I guess I wanted to kind of respond to Ross. And thinking about the connection between Elkins Park and Jenkintown, since I am a resident of Elkins Park, but I travel often into Jenkintown to utilize the businesses there. And it's, I guess, in part, I'm disappointed in a missed opportunity for some upgrades to the multimodal transportation between the Acme Shopping Center and downtown Jenkintown, because there's that new apartment building that went up and no sidewalks attached to it, and no improvements made to sidewalks along Greenwood Avenue there. But I think that's an opportunity where the Cheltenham and Jana groups can work together to get more, again, multimodal transportation. I think focusing on, I think trails are great. I love trails. We ride them often. But in order for us to make a broader environmental impact, changing the way we transport ourselves for things other than recreation is an important piece. Julie mentioned that a lot of people use the Tookany Trail to get to work. Ken, sitting here next to me, rides from Elkins Park into the city regularly, and using a lot of bike lanes. So bike lanes. It's I guess, putting all of our effort into a trail when a bike lane can help, such as on Tookany Creek Parkway. It is wide enough for a bike lane. We don't need to change the walking trail to create a bike lane to get us from A to B along that same segment of road. And it's, I think it would be simpler and probably a lot less expensive to do that than to put more paved and permeable surface closer to the creek itself, just to create that connection. If that segment had a bike lane, it would probably make more sense. And Ken's leaning in, so he might want to, do you want to chime in? Okay. That's what I wanted to say. I just wanted to make a couple comments. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. I 100% hear you on that. And that's something that the Bike Coalition strives to do, is build on our active transportation, not just through trails, but also bike ped accessibility and bike lanes. And I think a big reason why we push so much work into the circuit trails is because it really spurs more projects like bike lanes and safer pedestrian access to the trails. But it goes in both ways, and we try to take on opportunities that are there and that the community is interested in. And I love the idea of, you mentioned, Jenna, expanding into some issues in Cheltenham and kind of using that platform to work towards something like, bike facilities being implemented in the area you're talking about specifically. So, I mean, a big part of this conversation is to, share the work of what folks are doing in the area, collaborate and support each other to, build our trails out and build out more bike lanes and build out more pedestrian safety. So, thanks for your comment. And yeah, I hope that this group can continue to work together and focus on not just trails, but also those other important connections to build out the network.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Also, just throw out that, yes, certainly bike lanes and facilities are important. But I think, unfortunately, within the system we're in, we often have to look at things as, well, it's either bike lanes or the trail. Well, why not both? I mean, the township has already put in over, a couple $100,000 on the feasibility study, and a couple $100,000 more on building the bridge across Tookany Creek and the trail through Gimble Field. So, everything is going to cost money, and believe it or not, paving, even just putting, lines on a road for bike lanes isn't cheap. It costs money to put them down and to maintain them. So, I just think we should always be, like Patrick said, supportive of all efforts. And with all the money that's gone into the study for the Tookany Creek Trail already, it would be a shame to not see it move forward. But at the same time, not also take out the idea of bike lanes as well. And the other facet of trails, as they're not just recreation, and we certainly have plenty of numbers we could share on the economic and transportation benefits they offer to not just the Philadelphia region, but also the country. But it's also about safety. And, we design trails so that you'd feel comfortable with your 9-year-old or 6-year-old child out on the trail. And I think we can agree that a lot of people wouldn't feel comfortable with their 6-year-old child riding on bike lanes on Tookany Creek Parkway. So there are all these different things to keep into consideration, but we really do appreciate everyone's thoughts and everyone's enthusiasm tonight. It's been really great to see.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So I think we're getting close to time here. Are there any last minute questions before we jump off?
Dave Loeb, I'm just want to say that I'm glad that this is happening. I think that the previous gentleman expressed it very, very well, that you need to use the circuits, the recreational opportunities to, lead into more practical, things that people, ways that people can use bikes to commute. And like bike lanes. So I'm very glad this is happening.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Great. So unless there's any other comments or questions, great. So as I had mentioned, and as you know, this has been recorded, so I will upload this to YouTube and share this out. So if you have any folks in mind that maybe want to hear more about what's going on, you can share that out with them. We'll link to everything that's been shared out over the chat. We'll have our email addresses attached and all that. Like we had mentioned, if you have any questions about any of this, please reach out at any time. And we'll continue to kind of grow and build and look for opportunities to advocate for connecting up the trail through Cheltenham, but also the neighboring communities as well. So yeah, thank you all for coming out. Hopefully you can get out and enjoy some of the weather after this. So yeah, thanks all.
Thanks,
Awesome.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.